Today we're going to talk about Wrexham. I've got Greg here with me today.
Hello.
We've talked about Wrexham in the past, but currently they're in the final run-in to the end of the season. Them and Notts County are the top two teams right now, so it looks like they'll either finish top and get automatic promotion or they'll be in the playoffs. Those teams are so far ahead, to me it looks like it's almost guaranteed that they probably go up, so potentially looking at League 2 next season. Greg, what do you think of, if they get promoted to League 2, what does that look like for the club and the players, you think?
Obviously, Rob and Ryan, the two owners, made it pretty obvious that their ambition is to obviously get promoted, then promoted again and all the way to the Prem, which is a high expectation and a high ambition. But yeah, obviously the first step is into this next sort of league. Personally, I think they need to probably branch out and sort of extend out into other markets for players and bring new talent in. Obviously, they do have a lot of higher league players than on their current list than what the sort of National League probably represents. But I think that's still probably not going to be enough. They probably, if they want to keep being promoted and keep working their way up through the divisions, then they're going to need to bring in more talent. I think a big one that might help them is obviously documentary Welcome to Wrexham. Two big name owners. They've had the Queen come there.
The Queen? The King?
Yeah, obviously they've had the King come and visit, so they've had this big spotlight on, and I think when you look at these League One players who are coming down into the National League to play, I think a big part of them is they want to be a part of this ambition that Ryan and Rob have, and then also sort of this fame now that they can potentially have. So you might see players even higher up where they're in the Championship. I don't know if you're probably getting one from the Prem just yet, but it might be ambitious. Maybe the sort of cellar dwellers, but again, it would have to be someone probably retiring or sort of coming to the twilight of their career, looking for maybe sort of an easy competition that they can sort of hold their fame and have this sort of public spotlight on them still.
Yeah, I think as a football club, it definitely offers a lot of other avenues and a very different thing to what all the other clubs can. So as you mentioned, with players dropping down, obviously the standard of football is less. Potentially their wages are less, but their exposure and things outside of the sport would be a lot higher. So I was just saying to you before, there's so many players they've signed that have got a big name through the documentary, the likes of Mullen and Ollie Palmer. I've seen these guys that potentially, if they start their own clothing line, now potentially that can really sell and have that Wrexham theme. And these guys are household names now alongside Premier League players, and they're so far apart ability-wise.
Yeah.
But it's just thanks to Wrexham and the viewers and the audience that it's kind of demanded.
You're starting to see them in the same sort of content that you're seeing Ollie Palmer appear on YouTube channels or even TV sort of appearances alongside some Prem players, which you'd never hear of. No one could probably name 5 other National League players unless they're supporting those teams. Yeah. I think that's where the interest is going to come, is obviously they sell this dream of come join us. Sure, we're in League 2, but we're this big club that is going to try and bring people in. Even if you look at what they've done in a social media sense, obviously social media is massive now, that compared to any other team in their sort of bracket, I think they've got 400,000 or 500,000 followers now, all sort of wanting to know and wanting to see their content.
So also there's a big American influence now between Rob and Ryan buying the club, and in the past we've mentioned Chelsea having Todd Bowley come in and having very American ideas and not going down too well in the Premier League because there's probably a lot of history there and a lot of clubs have a lot of expectations with what happens there, but at a much lower level where maybe these guys have come in and clearly had a much bigger influence and almost treated like royalty themselves now for what they've done and how they've transformed the team and the league. It seems like they've got a pretty interesting idea over the summer where, in the off-season, Wrexham, or at least a select few, are going to be in the United States getting represented over there.
Yeah, they obviously entered that tournament. I think it's a 32-team tournament. It's a bit of a mixed bag of the teams that are going in it. Competition that probably isn't your traditional line. I think one of the teams was a bunch of esports players who've created their own team.
Clint Dempsey,
yeah. He's obviously made a team as well. So they're obviously filling this tournament up with sort of unusual market, I guess. And Wrexham have fielded their team where they've got retired and ex sort of players, and then also Rob and Ryan are named in the squad.
Yeah, they're going to play themselves.
Yeah, so there's this sort of excitement of right, let's go watch Ryan Reynolds play football. No matter what sort of level it ends up being at, it's
going to demand an audience.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he does something where he's mic'd up, or he's creating even further interest. He's bringing more eyes into the club. There is obviously the incentive of the cash prize that they win. So any of that money that could potentially come to Wrexham, where they reinvest that back into the club, maybe the community again. They're obviously doing that redevelopment of their stadium. They could put the money there. there is an incentive other than just exposure, but they can also secure some funds.
We've talked about in the past with the many videos we've made about Wrexham that, there's been such a strong positive influence, and you talk about expanding the audience in America, and this is all great. It's bringing a lot of money in and viewership, and hopefully that translates onto the pitch where they get better results. But for the locals there in Wrexham, I wonder, like you say, with the stadium selling out and there being a lot more ticket sales, is that maybe having a negative influence on the locals who might have gone week to week and been supporting their local team, and now all of a sudden they can't get to a game?
Yeah, you wonder, are they getting all this sort of, I would say international, but they're probably getting a bit more domestic interest where people are maybe coming to the games to say, oh, I went to a Wrexham game. Like I've been where they sort of film the documentary or whatnot. I'm not sure if that's where the interest is coming from, but obviously now they're expanding their stadium to go from 10,000 to 15,000, 5,000 extra seats. If you get 5,000 more bums on seats every week, then obviously generating more money into the club, which that's the reality is if they want to keep going on this path that they need, then they're going to need to generate money. Is obviously National League's one thing, League 2, League 1, but when you start going into Championship and then the Prem, as sort of wealthy and as well financed as what they probably are now, you probably get to that point and you're not just relying on the owner's money now, you're relying on the club making profit.
Yeah.
And if it gets to that point, do they look for a third party to invest into the club as well, to bring even more money and get those signings, get the things that they need to continue on their path?
Yeah, it's probably an interesting point. Like in the National League, all of a sudden Wrexham appear to be this big fish in a small pond. As they progress, and if one day they do, fortunately enough, make it to the Premier League, they're going to have to kind of take another step and bring in some other investor or something else like that, because you're competing now with like billionaire owners in the Premier League, and these clubs are spending a lot more, and all of a sudden this little pool can only take you so far. And again, for like the players who they've managed to recruit, you'll need to bring in a lot more high quality again, which is probably anti-fairy tale for these guys who've got promoted. They can only take the club so far. They're probably going to reach a limit at some stage.
Yeah, because even you look at the sort of the bottom teams in the Prem when they're doing sort of off-season and sort of mid-season signings, there's still millions and millions of dollars, which exceeds both Ryan and Rob's original investment into the club. So you're now asking them, well, now you need to put up more to get the success that we need. So maybe they do have to look at a pathway of, we need further investment into the club. Yeah,
I think maybe they probably still can continue. I would suggest League 1, League 2, but the minute you hit that Championship status, I think, it's kind of exponential where it starts increasing dramatically. And then, even like the bottom clubs, they'll spend over 100 million once they get promoted. Obviously the Premier League as a whole generates that money, but the club size, I wonder if that's going to have an influence in whether, if they are spending money on transfers, they're going to have to club up a lot more with their expenditure.
Even you look at sort of what Nottingham Forest have done recently, where they've
signed 30 players.
Just get rid of it. That costs money, right? Whether it works or whether it doesn't, but they've had to obviously outlay. That's what they thought was necessary to sort of remain in the higher league in the Prem.
Yeah, it's a lot more competitive, so you'll see the money is way bigger, but who knows how long that's going to take them if they do one day get back up to the highest level. If it is a slow build, potentially by that stage they will have this massive global audience. I mean, they already do, considering how low they are in like the football pyramid, but I suspect as time goes on, if they keep grinding out results and keep progressing as they are, it's probably likely, and other people, like other investors, will definitely want a piece of that pie, because it seems as an outsider to be quite an intelligent investment.
It isn't something that hasn't been done before. Obviously Swansea went from a very similar position, and over the course of, I think, sort of under that 10-year period, they went from the same league and then made it back into the Prem. They've gone from a similar sort of league position, such as the National League, and then made it into the Prem, and then not only did they make it into the Premier League, then they've then stayed there, and for 5 or 6 years. Obviously they've dropped out now, but maybe that sort of touches on when they sort of got into the Prem. Did they have the sort of interest, and were they able to sign who they needed to? Did they have the money coming into the club? Were they ready to really be there? It's sort of, obviously with Ryan and Rob's ambition, they sort of want this path of sort of high trajectory, but did they need to sort of stabilise first and then take sort of the next step, stabilise again in the league, then go up again and sort of get the club infrastructure in a position that it's going to be ready for it? Yeah,
because I guess there is somewhat of a risk where they climb too quickly. Teams you mentioned there where have come up and they just kind of drop back down straight away. I mean, like Fulham and Norwich for years have been
Yeah.
kind of fluctuating between the Premier League and the Championship, but at a much lower level they could potentially get to League One and kind of drop off, or it does need to be a steady build and make sure you're building the whole way up, because if you just take this kind of quicker you rise, potentially the quicker you're going to fall.
Leeds, they obviously were
Yeah.
down for a very long time, and then now they've worked their way up. They were okay last year without being...
Narrowly avoided relegation.
Yeah,
but potentially their time might be up this season.
Yeah, that's right. Like they're in that battle now where they've only this will be their third year being up. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them. They're a big club. They've got a big supporter base. They've got a
bit of history there.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, yeah, that's been our conversation today about Wrexham. Hopefully they continue on as they have been this season and get that promotion. I'm sure people around the world will definitely all be rooting for them. They seem to be probably everyone's second team at the minute. If you've agreed with anything that we've said or disagreed with what we've said, definitely chuck it in the comments below. As Greg mentioned, with the stadiums and the tickets and the fans there. Let us know if you're a local at Wrexham and if there has been any challenges there with the, potentially a lot more tourism, bringing in people wanting to get seats at the game and just into the town as well. Maybe it seems largely quite positive, but hopefully there's not too many people missing out who used to be going, week to week as a loyal supporter. Make sure you're following us on Instagram as well. We post a few things on there, keep up with news and little updates. But yeah, otherwise, I've been Ant.
I've been Greg.
Oh, thanks. This has been Red, mate. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, it was good.